All right, Steve Atwater joining us here, Broncos Ring of Famer, Hall of Famer. Steve, the stuff that came down over the weekend with Matt Stafford going to the L.A. Rams, a couple of first-round picks, future first-round picks, a third-round pick, and Jared Goff. What did you think about that deal?
Well, the Rams feel like they got themselves a deal. I don't know if I would have made that deal, but, with them in their situation, I could see why they would do that because, they have a team that's ready to win right now. And, they have a bunch of great players on that team. They got a great coaching staff. And, they have opportunities to compete for a championship next year. And, I guess they feel like the only thing missing was the quarterback. And, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out because they gave up, more than I think they should have given up. But, hey, we'll see. They got some smart minds in that room. So, like you always say, Ryan, we'll see.
What did you think about the Broncos' role in that, though? Because the Broncos did dip their toe a bit in this trade process.
Yeah, well, I'm sure the Broncos are probably trying to kind of see what's available, what's a good fit and what's not a good fit. To be honest with you, I'm not sure that I would have, wanted to mortgage our future for that transaction for him to come here either. Now, hey, do we need some quarterback competition? Absolutely. But, to have to give away first rounders and that, I'm not for that. I'm for, building this team through the draft, but still making sure we have somebody to compete with Drew Lock this year, somebody that's going to push him, make him better. And, we'll feel confident if somebody goes down that, hey, the guy that's backing him up, he can come in and he can be a bona fide player for us and win some games.
What do you think it says about the Broncos' perception of Drew Lock that they made it clear to Detroit that they did not want to include him in a trade?
Is that a fact?
Yeah.
Or is that some that Benjamin Allbright insider information?
That's some of that per sources.
Well, hey, that shows that they want to have Drew Lock here on this team, and again, I think that that may be what they're looking for is just some competition. But obviously, if they brought Matt Stafford here, Stafford would have been the starter. I would say a lot of people are a lot higher on Matt Stafford than I am. I'm not saying he's not a good quarterback, but good quarterback sometimes you're able to overcome some obstacles of some other bad parts of a team, and he hasn't been able to do that as much. So, like I said, I'm not mad that we didn't make a big push there.
So let me ask you something, and it's professional sports, so sometimes you have to kind of check your ego at the door. But how does George Paton delicately balance if he has to include Drew Lock in some of these conversations, if he decides to continue to kick the tires on other quarterback opportunities? How does he maintain that relationship with Drew? Because if they have to go back to him, and Drew's been floated around in, 4, 5, 6, 75 different quarterback rumors, well, all of a sudden, Drew Lock might come back and say, you know what, I just don't really feel like this team has faith in me. How do you find that balance?
Well, the thing is, who knows what really goes on behind closed doors? Who knows? George Paton and the other teams, they're going to come out and say, well, yeah, Drew Lock was a part of this deal. If it doesn't happen, only way we'll really know for sure is if Drew Lock gets traded. And at that point, I guess it wouldn't matter. But, if they came out and said, yeah, we were trying to shop Drew Lock, then that'd be a whole different story. But most of the time, until it's done, it's pure speculation. And, we saw what happened with the New York Jets and Jamal Adams, and they floated his name around. He didn't like that, but a little bit different situation. He'd been to the Pro Bowl. He's been balling big time, all that good stuff. I don't anticipate that happening with Drew, but I would imagine if it did get out, that it probably would be a little bit. You had to do a little bit of damage control.
You know, I found it interesting that George Paton's first call was to Justin Simmons. Called him and said, hey, I just want to get you my number, chat about things, tell you a little bit. I don't want to get over my resume or any of that kind of stuff. I don't really want to talk football. There'll be time for that later. I just want to say, hey, I'm going to be a resource for you. We're going to build something big here. We want you to be a part of that. What do you think that says to a player like that you're going to have to go into contract negotiations?
Oh yeah, I'm sure that meant a lot to Justin. You know, that would have meant a lot to me. You know, going into the off season, knowing that you could potentially be a free agent or have to go through and play on the franchise tag again. I know for Justin, he wants to get that contract that says, hey, I'm going to be here in Denver for I'm not sure it'll be the rest of his career, but for at least the next 4 or 5 years. So I think that does a lot. I think that was smart on George Paton's part of giving him a call. And, I think it's important. I think it's important for his teammates, too, to see, hey, if they get to that level, how will they be treated? What will their situation be like? If they go out and play well, will the team reward them? I think it sets a good precedent.
Hey, Steve, you're the greatest, brother. We appreciate you popping on as always, and we'll look forward to talking to you next week. Coming up on Broncos Country tonight, what was Justin Simmons' first experience with GM George Paton? He tells us next.
Welcome back to Broncos Country Tonight with Ryan Edwards and Benjamin Allbright.
All right, Ben, so our guy Michael Spencer over there at CBS 4 did an interview with Justin Simmons and asked him about I can't wait to watch the whole interview, but he put up this clip on Twitter, and I retweeted on my account. You can go find it, Edwards Radio, and Justin Simmons is talking about his first experience with GM George Paton and how he reached out. The most obvious point here is the way that you want to show Justin Simmons love is you pay him, right? I mean, that's the most obvious point here. But what did you think about George Paton reaching out to Justin Simmons in that setting right when he gets here? Because I have to imagine when you're changing streams at GMs there and you're a guy that's been waiting for this contract to come about, I got to imagine Justin was probably a little nervous about a little bit of a change specifically there.
Yeah, he has been. Resetting the contract negotiation process could be something that would be upsetting to somebody who's looking for life-altering money, in terms of what that's going to be. I think it was a good move by George Paton, the way that he did that. Hey, I don't want to talk about anything, just want to reach out, say I'm a resource, here's my number. We're going to be building something. You are in our plans. And kind of giving a tip of the cap to that and, letting him know that, hey, once the negotiating window opens, we're going to be here. There's a possibility the Broncos could franchise tag him again. That would be a negotiating ploy to make sure nobody else can negotiate with him and don't snake him out from under him. But then that's the way I would do it if I were the Broncos. But I also know that would upset Justin. So you got to kind of find a way to say that and understand that. And then maybe you put a second tag on him and you set a deadline between the two of you. Hey, if we don't get this done by the NFL draft, then we'll pull the tag and you're free to hit the market and we'll go from there. And that, I think that'd be fair to every side involved. And so I think him reaching out like that was struck a chord, was a big point and helped make him feel valued, because that's what Justin really wants. He wants to be respected. The contract doesn't have to be top of the market money. It has to be respectful of what he is, what he does. And I think that's what he wants. He wants to feel respected by the organization.
One of the things that we heard about George Paton coming out of Minnesota is that he does have a good relationship with his players. That's something that he prides himself on. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that John Elway didn't. And certainly every GM has a little bit of different relationship as it goes to how close they want to actually be with the players. How much value and stock do you put in something like that about wanting to have a more personal or personable approach when it comes to the players?
I think that's a big thing. I think that there are players that believe – there were players that were upset by John Elway's negotiating style, if we're being honest. John, had been a player. And so players expected him to understand from the players' side of the house, hey, we're trying to get that money. But John had a fiduciary duty to the organization as the general manager to try to do it as cheaply, as frugally, however you want to put it, as possible. And so I think that players got upset with that. They got upset with a former player, having been both sides of the house. I think there was some animosity there sometimes. I think having a guy who wasn't really that and can have that style and that attitude going into it, I think that he can be more. I think it can be better and be more relatable, and I think he can bring that family culture kind of back into it. And you understand that I've got to do this. I don't have this background where you're expecting me to be a certain thing. You're expecting me to be a suit. So, it doesn't surprise me. I bet he's a man of his word. Seems like he would be. Probably wouldn't have risen to where he is if he wasn't. So I think that him reaching out to Justin and him talking about homegrown talent, I was never nervous about that. And I firmly do believe a deal with Justin Simmons will get done. I'm not reporting that. This is my personal belief. It's not surprising to me. I loved it. I love the fact that Justin, you can kind of tell from the body language.
Oh, no, that I'm glad you pointed that out.
It's a totally different look from what it was that end of year press conference.
100%. I mean, night and day. And that's where I'm talking about the inching up a few percentage points there, because I came into what was the end of year press conference going, man, if they kind of put this as another low bar, will give you top 10 but not top 5 or top 6. You were reporting a while back that really, top 6 was right around the mark that they just needed to clear, and they were not that far off, but it was just enough that the two sides couldn't quite agree on it. I'd hate to see that situation. We're quibbling over
I don't think that situation is going to occur, because I believe that the organization is cognizant now of what the number is, where they weren't previously.
Okay, and I'm here for it. But to see his body language and to see how glowingly positive he was talking about the situation, whereas, it was a very cold and very businesslike. He was saying goodbye to the media.
Right.
And the fans saw that because we're running everything on Zoom.
Right.
He was saying goodbye to the media, and you're just kind of like, man, really? Is this where this is headed? So that I feel like for a lot of Broncos fans, they needed some reassurances here. And I tell you what, for a team that has been losing, a team that has missed the playoffs, there is something about kind of retaining the guys that are at least raising some boats, right? Some guys on this team make you better, and you would like to continue down the road. Now, unfortunately for Justin Simmons, the time he's been here, they have not been a winning team, right? No. But that's not because of him.
Right.
And the thing about it is replacing his level of productivity is not something you're going to be able to do easily right away.
It's not just what he does in the box score either. Justin Simmons makes the players around him better.
He's good in the community. I mean, this is like a home run. It's an easy win.
Offensive coordinators don't throw at him.
Yes.
Offensive coordinators know better than to throw, and that they try to avoid throwing in that direction, or they use clear out routes to move him to be able to do that. He dictates to offenses what you do. It's more than just what's in the box score. It's more than just the off the field, that he's a saint off the field. You never have to worry about him. It's more than his work in the community. It's more than his attitude and his emotional and passionate leadership on the field. And from an X's and O's standpoint, he dictates to offenses what you do. He made those rookie corners look better. They made him look worse because he was having to cover for those guys this year. But he's still got 5 interceptions.
Yeah, there's going to be improvement there in the secondary. There's going to be a massive investment.
And I think that's really it. I think inside backer, some depth at the edge rush, and then the corner position are the major investments that this team is going to be making this year. I know everybody's excited to talk about Deshaun Watson, and that'd be really cool. But I'm more dwelling on the realistic. And the realistic is, you had a great defense that had a ton of injuries. You get those guys back. Now you've got a really good defense. You just need an offense to just cut down the turnovers. They cut down the turnovers, they're going to put more points up, and that's going to lead to wins.
Coming up next on Broncos Country Tonight, we check in with former Broncos safety T.J. Ward and the 5-year anniversary of Super Bowl 50. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back to Broncos Country Tonight with Ryan Edwards and Benjamin Allbright.
Let's head out to the hotline and bring on T.J. Ward at BossWard43 on Twitter. TJ, it's great to have you back on the program. Ryan Edwards, Benjamin Allbright, how are you tonight?
Hey, fellas, I'm good. How you guys doing?
We're doing good. Happy anniversary, man. 5 years.
Oh, appreciate it. Man, time's flown by.
Yeah, man. That was a lot of fun watching you guys sort of chop it up, the no-fly zone. What was it about your personalities, that group, that personalities, that made it so special?
I think we all had a little feisty personality, man. Each in our own way. We were very committed and very dedicated to our craft. So, we worked very well together. And it was a fortunate time for us to all come together and win a championship. So, blessed to be a part of that.
As time carries on, memory seems to fade just a little bit, and we lose some of the things, and some of the important things stay with us. What's the one thing that really stands out to you about that group and that season still after these 5 years?
I think it's just the way we won games that season. Every game was close. Every game was made by a playmaker. So each game was very tight, and we showed character by winning all those tight games throughout the season, and it prepared us and got us ready for the playoffs and the championship.
It's funny. I remember talking to some people out in Carolina right before Super Bowl 50, and they were already sort of planning the parades. Did you guys ever get a sense that maybe they were a little too overconfident coming in? I mean, you guys certainly kind of came into it seeming as though you were like, hey, man, our defense is going to be able to hang with anybody.
Yeah, they were super confident. They were really a little bit disrespectful, and we took it personal. They really gave us no shot, at least in the media-wise. And, having the season that Cam had, MVP year, they put up record numbers. Even though we came in just as great on defense, it was like, for some reason, they outbalanced the offense of Carolina versus our defense. So, we all seen how that ended.
Yeah, my wallet certainly thanked. I love the fact the media was trying to run up the Carolina Panthers before I was working here for Broncos Radio. But the season itself, going back and watching that, it really felt like the Denver was almost kind of a team of destiny. It harkened back to me to the year that Tom Brady took over for the Patriots, and the way you just felt it. You just like that team. You guys just kept picking up wins. And that team back then just kept picking up wins. You found ways to do it. And I don't know if that was the attitude internally, but from the outside looking in, it just felt like, hey, this team's destined to get there. They just find ways to close. They answer at the bell.
Like you said, it was destined. It was meant to be. Every game was some way pulled out, miraculous play, and it was amazing. It was amazing to be a part of that.
No doubt about it. TJ Ward joining us here. They had on NFL Network a couple of weeks ago the AFC Championship game that you guys played against the Patriots. And as I was watching back, just the waves of guys that you just kept bringing at Tom Brady. I think you guys hit him like 25 times. Your defense, it was unbelievable how shaken he was back there. And it kind of got me thinking about what, like a little bit of a recipe. Like what can the Broncos then, or almost any team, what can you take away from what was built on the defensive side and assess? I mean, what do you think the recipe is for a defense that's that good?
I mean, it starts up front. Definitely for us, we had just two special players on the end, D-Ware and Vaughn. And even on the inside, it was Sylvester and Wolf and Slot and
you had Malik. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Malik. Them were some hogs up front, and they were getting to the quarterback, and they were stopping the run. And then on the back end, we did our thing with, stopping, the pass, the receivers and tight ends. But then in the middle, we had Danny and B. Marsh, and they could cover most any backs. They could cover most any tight ends. So they were very versatile and physical. So we weren't lacking any of that with our athleticism. So, it was really about matchups. We were able to match up with anybody in every team, whether it was man or zone.
Well, we got a fun Super Bowl coming up. A couple of safeties in there I think are pretty good. Tyrann Mathieu, he plays all over the field. I don't know if you classify him as a true safety, maybe a chess piece. And then, they got the young buck over there in Tampa as well. You probably got a rooting interest here? Obviously, you spent a year down there in Tampa.
Yeah, I did spend a year down there in Tampa. I don't really have a rooting. Well, no, I love to see my teammates that I played with in Tampa get a Super Bowl ring. So I guess you could say I have a rooting interest, but I don't think they're going to win.
Me either. My wallet's open. No.
Yeah, that's a tough thing, man. I mean,
he's winning, but yeah.
Well, and there's
some.
I was just gonna say there's something about the way Mahomes plays, man. I don't know. Like you played against some great quarterbacks. What makes him so special?
Oh man, he can do it all. He's like a complete quarterback. He can move. He can throw on the move. He can stay in the pocket. He's a great leader, and he has unlimited amount of resources. So, the weapons are of abundance over there. He throw it to anybody.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Yeah, he's a special dude.
TJ, we appreciate you catching up with us. What are you up to these days? I read you got a juice bar in Atlanta now.
Yeah, I got a juice bar in Atlanta. It's called Juicy, Juiccee, and I'm bringing one to Denver soon. So look out for that. I also started a brand, a Ward brand, the wardboardproject.com, or you can just go to my Twitter. Got a lot of activity on there, bossworld43.com and Instagram.
Awesome. We'll definitely do that. Hey, TJ, it was great catching up with you again. Happy anniversary. It's obviously a special memory there for a lot of Broncos fans. I know for you guys as well. And hope to catch up with you here again very soon.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. TJ Ward joining us. That was fun.